Hello, indie authors. Welcome back to the Indie Author Mentor Show. It is season 2 today. Today it is 7/17/2019 as I record this, and this is episode 17, and it is now season 2. In season 2, I'm going to be talking a lot about mindset and work-life balance and anything that's going to fall in that category. So if you have topics that you would like me to talk about, or if you have questions that you want me to answer on the show, please email me, Valerie at valerieisanauthor.com. Isan is I-H-S-A-N. First, we are going to talk about the author life segment, and that's just my personal update. It's going to be pretty short today. I've been thinking about a lot, actually. Most of my business thoughts these days have been centering around what I can bring to the author community and how I can help writers more than I do now. I want to provide valuable content for you, and I want to help you in your journey to being a writer, to being a career author, to being a indie published author, or traditionally published, as you see fit. Most of the thoughts seem to be gearing towards a coaching program that I could offer, and I'm still working out a lot of the details of that, how long I want it to be, what would be involved in it. I am getting some help from author friends and from prior students who are giving me ideas about the content of the coaching program. And I'm also getting help designing this program from Racheal Cook, who is a business coach that I'm working with. There's a lot of writing coaches out there, so I want to stand out in the crowd, obviously, but mostly I want to be able to use my strengths to spin coaching for authors a little bit so that I'm offering something that's not run-of-the-mill. Because, maybe like you, I want to make a living with my writing, so I need to find a way that I can offer a viable service that authors would be willing to pay for. And they do other services that authors pay me to do, proofreading and editing, but I would like to add coaching because I do like teaching and I do like encouraging other people, and that's all I'm going to say about that because, again, the coaching program idea is a little bit too new to talk about quite yet. I want to get it clear in my mind first before I announce it to the world, and you guys will be the first to hear about it, I promise. Okay, Minnesota was awesome. It was the best experience I could have hoped for, and then more. So my sister Leslie and I reconnected after 12 years of not really talking to each other. I mean, we would say hi on Facebook or, text every once in a while, but that was about it. So, 12 years is a long time. I was a much more judgmental person back then. And so was she. So it didn't help us build sisterhood through those years, because we also live so geographically apart, and we always have ever since I got married the first time. So I'm really glad to be reconnected, and we got some fun pictures, and we went to the museum, and we went to a sculpture park, and we had an awesome barbecue, and we sat in our hot tub, and it was just a really fun experience. So I hope she's listening. Hi, Leslie. I'm super happy that we reconnected. Okay, in the I'm reading section, while I was vacationing, I finished up White is for Witching. I read Lost Lake by Sarah Addison Allen. That was lovely. And right now I'm reading The Reckoning by Louise Penny. So that's taking up my fiction space. And in nonfiction, I'm reading Twyla Tharp, The Creative Habit. Learn it and use it for life. And it has a bunch of exercises and questionnaires and ideas. I'm not too far into it yet, but it was recommended by my business coach, Racheal Cook. So I thought I would give it a shot and read it. So I'm reading that. I'd like to remind everybody that this podcast is sponsored by my supporters at Patreon. Being a patron of the arts is a totally cool thing to do. Joining my Patreon community gets you sneak peeks into my creative world, and for less than $1 a month, well, for less than a pack of gum, as low as $1 a month, you can be a patron of the arts and of me, and you can find my Patreon page at Patreon. That's patreon.com/Valerie Ihsan, IHSAN. So let's get into the main topic. So first episode of season 2, which is really episode 17 of the podcast, I'm going to be talking about taking a day off versus goofing off. So this is kind of under the heading of managing burnout and overwhelm. So, well, mostly overwhelm, because I see them as two different things. Overwhelm is when you feel kind of like you're drowning and you're just trying to keep your head above water and you're putting out fires everywhere and you're juggling and trying not to drop things, and things are getting heavier and heavier and harder to manage. And burnout is where you're done and you can't even lift your head and you just sort of have to drop everything and recuperate, kind of like being super ill. Whether you want to or not, you're stuck in bed and you can't do anything. So this would be more of a pre-burnout stage, I think. So managing overwhelm or pre-burnout, like it's getting pretty close and you don't want to hit burnout, so what are you going to do? So taking a day off versus goofing off. Okay, taking time off is totally a necessity. Everybody knows this. But entrepreneurs, stay-at-home parents, grad students, all of the people who most need a day off, it seems, believe that only in theory, not in practicality. And I guess I would say I used to be in that category, and I still struggle with it a little bit, but I'm pretty good at taking time off when I need it. I say yes to myself quite a bit. In fact, I worry about that line between am I taking the afternoon off because if I don't, I'm going to go insane? Or am I taking the day off because I feel lazy and I just don't want to work? Like, can I push through this and just get it done? Or do I really honestly need the afternoon off? And by taking the afternoon off, for me, that's usually like binge watching Queer Eye or British gardening shows on Netflix, or diving into a novel with a dog on my lap, which I have a little doggy on my lap already. Even napping. I took a 30-minute nap today. That was not planned, but whatever. Or sitting in the hot tub when the day just kind of goes wonky. So I don't have a problem taking time off for myself, but I do worry about that saying yes to myself into laziness. I'm afraid I'll say yes to myself too much and that it will fall into laziness. I don't ever want to be considered a lazy person. And probably nobody thinks I'm lazy. Probably I'm the only person that worries that I'm lazy. So yes, where do you draw the line between goofing off and taking that day off? And I think I know the difference, and I bet that you do too. I think you just know. If you are on the verge of tears and you just want to sleep and you can't imagine doing any more things that day, that sounds like a good time to take an afternoon off. But if I'm in the middle of that afternoon off and I'm feeling like the radar is looking at us, I don't know, there's a level of guilt there, I guess, that allows me to know when it's not so much guilt, it's more about being honest with myself. So if I'm lounging if I'm watching Netflix and I have started the 4th episode of Love Your Garden or whatever it's called, I might start thinking, okay, I think I've recuperated enough. I can probably get up and load the dishwasher at least, and that will help kind of get me up and moving. And then I can think about going back to my, writing project, for instance. So I kind of know I self-regulate fairly well. The times I don't regulate well are usually going the other way. I'm usually doing something that's detrimental to my health, like eating a bunch of sugar or drinking too much or staying up too late or, something like that, saying yes to other people too often. So I'm usually going the other way, the opposite way. And after about 2 weeks or so, sometimes it takes me 2 weeks to recognize my downward spiral and the self-limiting choices that I'm making. And then I climb out of the hole that I've dug and I get back I get back to work and I'm usually, oh, okay, fine. But sometimes I need that downtime, and I don't often it's not like I'm taking 2 weeks off. I'm usually struggling through, deadlines or whatever. And yeah, so I think the trick for me, and maybe this will be true for you too, and that's why I bring it up, is being able to plan ahead for kind of like budgeting. So, inevitably your car's going to break down and you're going to have to replace the fuel pump or something. And it's never when you think it's going to be, but if you've got a little fuel pump emergency fund saved and set aside, then when something happens to your car, you've got a little nest egg that you can dip into. And the same, I think, is true for our self-care and for planning ahead for those inevitable overwhelm weeks where just nothing you do can keep your head above water. So some of the things, because here's the thing, if I don't plan ahead, inevitably what happens is I'll have kind of a meltdown day when I'm on deadline or when my reputation as a professional is at stake, or client satisfaction is at stake, or money, being paid for a job I'm doing is at stake. So I don't want to have a meltdown during those times. I want to be able to feel overwhelmed and think, okay, I'm going to take the afternoon off and have that be okay and fit it into my schedule. But, everybody takes a sick day every once in a while. So that's kind of what these are. These are mental health days, right? So I was trying to think in preparation for this podcast, what are some things that you and I can do as busy entrepreneurial writers that will allow us to budget for I mean, it's kind of self-care, I guess. And the ideas I had were, and I keep saying this is my favorite one, obviously, and it's number one on my list, and that's to plan an afternoon off every week, like Friday afternoon, you're off, or whatever it is, and use that time to recharge. Julia Cameron talks about going on an artist's date once a week, and my I don't know, type A personality felt like I was getting it wrong, and that all of the things I wanted, like, it became a to-do list item for me. Like, one more thing I had to put on my list, and when I didn't get it done, I'd feel bad about myself. But that's really not what it's about. It's about recharging, whether that's napping for you, or listening to a record, or writing a letter, or taking a walk, or watching Queer Eye, whatever it is for you that will recharge your batteries. And, there's a lot of talk around the podcast waves about filling your creative well. And I highly believe in that. And I think that you can take that afternoon off once a week to do something that recharges or that fills that creative well. But I also think that for me, the main purpose of taking an afternoon off a week, for example, would be not to fill the creative well, although that could happen, but it's more of it's break time. Like, I can do whatever I want in that afternoon off. I can go visit a friend. I can go get ice cream and write in my journal. I can do whatever I want. It's a saying yes day for me. And I want to back up a little bit and explain this saying yes, these yes days. So back when I was a young parent, my kids were really young, my friend Ginger Carlson wrote a book called Child of Wonder. Fabulous parenting book. Amazing. Find it. If you're a parent with young children, it's a really great book, Child of Wonder. And there was a chapter in there, an essay that, I forget the name of the essay, but it had to do with saying yes. And her thought was that there are so many times in a young child's life and in a young parent's life where you have to say no to your toddler or your preschooler, and they want you to play with them and you have to do the dishes, so you say no. Or they want to have ice cream before dinner, but you know that means they won't eat their dinner, so you say no. Or they want to go to the park and it's raining and you say no because you don't want to go in the rain, or any manner of things that you would legitimately have to say no for. But along the way, it becomes a rut and you start saying no a little more often than is totally necessary. Valid, yes, but maybe not quite so necessary. So she decided one day that she was going to say yes to her son for the entire day. Whatever he asked for, she would say yes, as long, as it didn't put him in danger, obviously. And it was such a great experiment. It had such a great bonding, response that she decided to incorporate it regularly into their lives. And she would have, she would do them on birthdays or special days, of course, but then sometimes she would just declare it a yes day because they both needed it. And she found that she received a lot of joy from saying yes to him and giving him those experiences. So I don't have young children anymore. In fact, my kids don't live at home with me at all anymore. So I like to turn this around and say yes to me and give myself a yes day. And I usually do it for my birthday. But sometimes, I just want to say yes to myself a little more often. So that's what I mean by saying yes or having a yes day. And so if you have that afternoon off, yes, you're going to create, you're going to fill that creative well over time, or you could do a thing that fills your creative well, whatever that is for you. But I also think of it more as a yes afternoon, doing whatever it is that you want that will help you just kind of, stay sane the rest of the week. So that's my number one idea for preventing overwhelm, is to take an afternoon off every single week if your schedule allows that. Another idea I had was, well, this was for extreme overwhelm, or if you have gotten to that burnout stage where you're done. And unfortunately in our culture in America, that happens a lot more than people want to admit. And people change careers because of it, and they end or start relationships because of it. And it's usually a time of great turmoil for the person going through the burnout. And there's a lot of soul searching. Sometimes moving happens. Changing the status quo certainly needs to happen, because it really can affect your health very, very negatively. So to prevent burnout, or when you're in that burnout stage, if you're there already, you could say yes to yourself until you detoxed, until that extreme unhealthy time, burnout time, has subsided. So if you just said yes to yourself and did whatever you wanted, whether it was working on a creative project, or whether it was napping, or going to the gym, or you're going to self-regulate. You're not going to watch Netflix every single day, but doing the things that bring you joy, finding your joy again after that extreme burnout, and just getting your health back. And sometimes that will take 2 weeks. Sometimes that will take 2 months. Sometimes that might even take a year. So have some compassion for yourself if you're in that burnout stage, or you're approaching it, and you just feel like, oh, I feel pretty scared about this. I need to stop everything now before it gets any worse. And try saying yes to yourself and see what happens. Maybe you'll produce something really amazing. Maybe you'll write a book. Maybe you'll get a new idea for a series. Who knows? Maybe you'll just nap a lot, and that's okay. Number 3, another idea. You could scale back and lighten your load so that overwhelm doesn't happen as frequently. And this requires usually some checking in and some time budgeting, meaning looking at what's in your schedule right now and seeing what's there that you can take out. And put more, budget your time so you put more over here and less over here, and take this out completely, and just kind of restructure your schedule so that it fits your personal needs or your family's needs at the time that you're in right now, because life happens and stuff changes. And so I personally I kind of do this twice a year, in December and in June. Just kind of look at everything again and see if you're on the right track, if things are copacetic, or if you need to shift some things around. Number 4, and you too, maybe, I could start saying no to the things I want to do. And this was sort of a revelation this morning. I have struggled for years and years and years, and finally feel like I've mastered saying no to the things I don't want to do. Because, I don't know, all my life, I was a people pleaser and just said yes to whatever came along if I thought it would help somebody. But that leads to overwhelm and burnout. And just not really liking your life. And so I finally am in a place where I can confidently say no to the things I don't want to do. But I say yes to the things I do want to do too often. Example, this summer, My goodness, I am traveling so much this summer, camping so much. Like every 2 weeks I'm going somewhere, and it's too much. And I've already decided that next summer is going to be totally different. And I'm not sure in what way that will be different. If I'm just going to say no to the camping trip that I want to go on, with all my friends, or, like going to Wisconsin to visit our friends. That was really, it was lovely, and I was really glad to see them. But I went to the Oregon Country Fair, which I volunteer at every summer, 2 weeks later, and I was so tired going into fair that it was not as enjoyable as it normally was because I'd gone on the vacation 2 weeks prior. So I have to budget and maybe start saying no to the things I really want to do so that I don't get into this really exhausted, I can't do anything, overwhelmed phase. Number 5, and I'm still really working on this one. I think it's a brilliant idea, and that is to create systems for the tasks and projects that you're doing so they won't take as long. Checklists are kind of a part of that. I dig checklists. Probably you know about that by now. This podcast, for instance, I have a checklist of all of the things that I need to do for each episode, and I do them over and over. And so you'd think that, I would just remember. But the act of thinking, okay, what's the next step? Let's see, I did that one, so I got to do this. Oh, but I have to do this other one first. Okay, yeah, that's the thing I'm going to do now. Like that process of thinking that through, that takes more time than it needs to. If I had a checklist, I just look, oh, that's the thing. Oh, that's the thing. Oh, that's the thing. And then I'm done with the checklist. And if I write up checklists or create systems for the things that I do regularly, then I can get them done a whole lot faster with less brain bandwidth. And that's what I want to create in my business, is so that it's easier and things don't take as long. And then I have more time to do projects, and then theoretically less chances of overwhelm because I'm getting more things done because things aren't taking as long because I have a system for it. But I'm still really struggling with that one. And if you want help with that too, I would recommend reading the book Running Down a Dream by Tim Grahl for help with that. He talks about that a lot. Also on the Career Author podcast with Jay Thorne and Zach Bohannon, they actually talk about systems, not all the time, but they have a few podcasts where they've addressed it directly, or even some where there's just an offhand comment about a system they have for something. So if you want help with those, then check out that podcast and that book. So, in conclusion, when overwhelm or burnout occur, try a little self-compassion. Things don't always go according to plan. Course correction, making a new plan, or just sitting out the next dance are all ways that you can successfully divert some of that overwhelm. It's a successful tactic that successful authors do. So have compassion in your reality. Take your time off in reality, not just in theory. And I would love to hear from you. What do you do to prevent overwhelm? Or when you hit overwhelm, what do you do when you're overwhelmed and swimming, dog paddling, trading water? How do you get from that place to, oh, okay, I don't have to try so hard right now? Because I'd really like to know for me too. Be well. Happy writing. I hope this was helpful. Please email me, Valerie at valerieisonauthor.com for comments or questions or suggestions. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next week.